Welcome back to Short Time with Vin and Dave. Vin Avenue, Dave Crossan with you as we head into the financial wake-up call. Dave, it's time to get the dirt out of your eyes and, wake up, say goodbye to the Sandman.
Yes.
And it's time to feel alive with a financial wake-up call this week.
Well, that sounds good. I think I'm going to have a little pressure to make sure people stay up and are excited by this show. But you know what? I'm up for the challenge.
Second half, Dave. Second half.
Let's go. Got to make it happen. All right. So this past week, I spoke to a lot of different clients, and we've spoken about different retirement accounts and different ways people are saving for retirement and different options that they have. And I got the best question. Are you ready, Vin? This was the question.
I'm curious.
From Melissa.
All right.
In Bridgewater.
There we go.
I like it. Bridgewater. Out of the area a little bit.
Short time all the time, everywhere.
But you know what's nice about it? We get a lot of calls from people that are up north, but they're down here for the summer, or they're visiting for the weekend, and guess what? They're listening to us. How cool is that?
The beauty of the app.
Yes. So her question is about a Roth IRA, and it was such a good question, and I even said to her when I spoke to her, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to use this for a show topic, and it was to basically explain the difference between a traditional IRA and a Roth IRA.
All right.
And really focus in on, because she's considering contributing to a Roth IRA, the differences and benefits and whatnot. So I'll keep it nice and simple. So you have a traditional IRA, which you can, and an IRA. And let's talk about what you can put into the accounts. So number one, you can contribute up to, again, this is assuming you have enough income. You can't contribute more than the income that you have in a given year, okay? So you can contribute up to $6,000 for a Roth, $6,000 for a traditional, and if you're over or age 50 or older, you can contribute another $1,000, which would bring it up to a $7,000 contribution. But I'm going to keep it separate on the Roth and the traditional of the benefits. So with the traditional, you may also get a tax deduction. Again, this is something where you want to lean on your CPA and accountant. But let's say I contributed to a traditional IRA, and let's say I'm under 50 years of age, and I put in my $6,000, I may be able to get a tax deduction. So that would lessen my tax liability. For a lot of people, that's very attractive.
Sure.
Where, okay, I make this contribution, I get that tax deduction, and so I use this for a retirement vehicle down the road. And again, the key age with this is age 59 and a half. That if I pull money out of that, I can be a 10% tax penalty. We don't want that from the IRS.
Right.
So past the age of 59 and a half, when I take the distributions or pull money from this account, I pay income on that. In other words, it's considered income when I take that distribution. So let's put an example out there. Let's say I contributed $6,000, and we'll just use one contribution. All right.
Okay.
I'm not going to get into multiple contributions. I'll just use this for an example. And let's say that $6,000 is now up to $20,000. I put it in some good investments. It's done very well. When I take those distributions or withdrawals from that account, and again, consider the fact that I'm past 59 and a half. We want to avoid any IRS penalty, 10% before the age of 59 and a half. I would just pay income tax on that. So that would just come out as a distribution, and it's considered tax. Okay, so I get the tax deduction, and when I pull it out withdrawals after age 59 and a half, I would have to pay income tax. So whatever my tax bracket is at that point, that would be what I would pay on that money, be added to my other income that I would have. Okay. The other factor you have to consider too is if I just left it in there and I reached the age of 72, I would have to start taking that money out. There is a required distribution. So let's say I'm like, you know what? I don't need this money. I'm just going to let it go. At the age of 72, I have to start taking distributions. And there's a certain amount I have to take out each year. If I don't, that's a 50% penalty. We want to make sure we take that distribution.
That's big.
So that's a simple explanation, if you will, on a traditional IRA. So now let's focus in on a Roth IRA.
Sure.
Couple things to consider, which are a little bit different than the traditional. Number one, you do not get a tax deduction. So money you put into this account, you don't get a deduction off your income in that year. And you're thinking, well, David, why wouldn't I do the traditional? I want that tax deduction.
Sure, right.
The key advantage to this, and again, there's two things to consider, is that you've had the account for 5 years, that contribution, and you're past the age of 59 and a half. When you take that distribution or withdrawal, when you decide to do it, it comes out tax-free. See the big difference here? It comes out tax-free. And what I just mentioned before about the required minimum distribution at age 72, I don't have that with the Roth. Okay? So something to consider here. Let's use that same example I had before where I made a contribution, but instead of a traditional IRA, I put it in a Roth IRA, and that $6,000 grew to $20,000. Well, that's great. I didn't get a tax deduction on that $6,000, okay? But when I start to take that withdrawal after age 59 and a half, again, 2 key things, has to be in there at least for 5 years. And, and you're past the age of 59 and a half, then that money can come out tax-free.
Like the sound of that.
Tax-free. Now, what I do want to mention is that's different than a traditional IRA is there are income limits. Like you cannot make more than a certain amount in a given year. And just to give you a range, a phase out would be up to, for 2022, if you're a single filer, $144,000. So if you make more than $144,000, you can't contribute to a Roth IRA.
Got it.
You won't have that limitation with a traditional IRA. And for a joint filer, it is $214,000. There's certain phase outs up to that point, but if you exceed that amount of income, you aren't eligible to make that contribution. So the key thing when it comes to a Roth is lean on your accountant, look at your income to see if you're eligible, number one. I tell you what, though, for younger people, making contributions, and let's go back to the fact that we can contribute up to $6,000 a year.
Sure.
You get somebody in their 20s putting in $500 a month. Again, there's your $6,000, so $500 per month, do it 12 months. There's your $6,000. They do that until they're in their retirement years in their 60s, and let's say you have a stock market performance of, let's say, averaging around 8%.
Okay.
That could be well over $1 million when they retire.
Wow.
That comes out tax-free. And again, I'm not guaranteeing returns. I'm just using an average performance basing on that amount of time frame. And Vin, tax-free. So think about that.
Who doesn't like the sound of that?
Exactly. So for people, the younger people that are listening, if you are eligible to do a Roth IRA, especially if the younger you are, the better. You're not getting a tax deduction. But also, let's consider something here, Vin. If people have 401ks they're making contributions to, that's also for retirement. They're getting the opportunity for a tax deduction there. So that'll be great for retirement. But if you're just simply, and here's a great way to do it, I'll keep it nice and simple. Put that money into, say, a nice index, a cost-efficient index fund like a S&P 500 index fund. I like to call it a set it and forget it. If you're putting in, if you can put in that $500 a month to max out that Roth IRA and you're eligible to do so, I suggest it. The beauty is because you're doing it each month, like we're dealing with right now, the stock market, it's up, it's down, it's sideways. Well, guess what? Month one, I put in my $500. Month two, the market went down. Well, I'm buying at a lower level. Let's say month three, the market comes back. Well, I'm paying a little bit more. The idea is we're averaging our costs, dollar cost averaging into the market where we're going in gradually. So if the market's down, I like it. We're taking advantage of it. I'm not here to say I like when the market goes down.
Right.
But what I'm saying is with this type of strategy, if you're putting money to work each month, you're taking advantage of the dip. So when the market does rally and come back, you've purchased a lot more for the money that you put in there because you were putting money to work while the market was down. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And again, with gradually doing it, for people listening right now, they might be like, hey, David, I can't afford it, $500 a month.
Right.
Do 100. Do 50. You see where I'm going with this? Put something to work in this, and if you qualify, let it be. So where am I going with this? Basically, I just wanted to use a basic example. There are pros and cons to each. Of course, with the traditional IRA, you could qualify for a tax deduction. That can be very appealing for people with their filing, number one. The other part to it, too, is there isn't the income limitation. to the traditional IRA, so that's appealing too. Let's say somebody is making more than the limits I talked about in the Roth. Well, it gives them the opportunity to make that contribution. And again, you want to lean on your accountant on how much you can deduct, especially if you have a 401k that you're contributing to. But if you do qualify for a Roth, when you see your accountant, I would have that conversation, verify that you can qualify. Of course, your financial advisor, have that conversation. But by gradually putting money to work, it's one of those type of accounts, Vin. It's like almost a set it and forget it. Just let it do its thing. Market's down, it'll buy more. When the market's up, it'll buy less. And the idea behind it, the longer you can go, for people that are listening that are in their 20s and 30s and you're not doing the Roth IRA, consider doing it. And that's it. I wanted to keep it basic and simple to show the difference between the two. And also for people that do qualify for the Roth, something to consider doing.
Yeah, hey, and glad you mentioned that last part. That was going to be my follow-up. I said I was going to ask, I'm 30, should people my age be doing that? And I think you answered that well.
Well, the reason I said 20s, for people in their 30s and 40s, of course, it's a good idea.
Right.
But the younger you can get started, the better, just for the length of time and the more contributions and taking advantage of the ups and downs of the market. So, Vin, especially for you, lean on your CPA, whoever that may be, yes?
I know a good one.
Oh, okay, sure.
I know a good accountant.
And have that conversation about a Roth IRA. And again, I'm never going to pound the desk and say, everybody listening must go do this today. No, everybody's situation is unique and different.
Sure.
But if you qualify and it makes sense, I just wanted to utilize a couple examples where it could benefit somebody for the retirement years. And the younger you start, the more time to take advantage of it.
There it is.
And there it is.
Well, Dave.
And there it is.
And
there it is.
Like Metallica, right? Enter Sandman. Well, you said goodbye to the Sandman. This was an enlightening wake-up call, financial wake-up call. People can reach the show short time at townsquaremedia.com. Where can they get in touch with you, Dave, at Shoreline Wealth Management?
And notice I picked up my card so I don't give out my cell phone. Here we go. It's 732-902-7880. Of course, check us out at shorelinewealth.com. We're in lovely Manchester and Manahawkin.
Mm-hmm. Go visit Dave. Give him a call. He'll help you. He'll help you out, give you that financial wake-up call. Well, we've got more of the show coming up next. It is Regina Mullen who'll be coming in just a couple minutes here, the mother of Navy SEAL trainee Kyle Mullen, who died earlier this year during Hell Week training with the Navy out near San Diego at the Naval Amphibious Base Coronado, and she's been looking for answers and also for changes as well. We're glad to have her coming in and sharing her story. That is coming up next on Short Time with Vin and Dave on 94.3 The Point and 105.7 The Hawk. The opinions voiced in the show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. This information is not intended to be a substitute for individualized legal advice. Please consult your legal advisor regarding your specific situation. S&P 500 is an unmanaged index which cannot be invested into directly. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. Dollar cost averaging involves continuous investment in securities regardless of fluctuation in price levels of such securities. An investor should consider their ability to continue purchasing through fluctuating price levels. Such a plan does not assure a profit and does not protect against loss in declining markets.
Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA, SIPC.
Whether you are in the early stages of investing, getting ready to retire, or planning your estate, you need a financial planner who will guide you on a clear path with honesty and transparency. Shoreline Wealth Management provides clarity through the complexity. Shoreline's system is straightforward. They will understand your financial circumstances, identify goals, analyze current plans, and customize a path to position you to reach your goals. Shoreline Wealth Management is your financial anchor. Visit shorelinewealth.com for more information today. Shorelinewealth.com. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA, SIPC.
Hi, this is Southside Johnny from the Asbury Jukes, and you are listening to Short Time with Vin and Dave on 94.3 The Point and 105.7 The Hawk. And I'm in the Hall of Fame.
Welcome back to Short Time with Vin and Dave. Vin Avenue, Dave Crossan with you, and joining us here this hour is Regina Mullen, the mother of Kyle Mullen, a Navy SEAL candidate and a star football player a few years back at Manalapan High School, Yale University, and Monmouth University, who passed away earlier this year during a training regimen known as Hell Week with the U.S. Navy out near near San Diego. Such a beloved part of our Jersey Shore community and really America as well, just somebody who was beloved everywhere he was. We want to get into discussing some of the things that happened around the tragedy and where things go from here, and of course celebrating the man that was Kyle Mullen. So, Regina, I know it's been a long journey for you and for the family, but before we dive into anything, I just want to welcome you onto the show and thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
So I think there was just so much emotions obviously going around in February, shock to what happened and why, and with everything going on with your son Kyle. Graduated at Manalapan High School in 2015. He was a captain of the Yale football team. Dave finished his career at Monmouth, went right to Sharp Coronado Hospital in California. That's where he passed away following Hell Week training. So, Regina, in the last few months, what have you learned about what happened during Hell Week and in the moments leading up to and following Kyle's passing from anybody you've spoken to with the Navy, with NCIS, with any friends, any of the other trainees who were there that week and that day?
Well, I do know that he didn't die in the hospital, and it wasn't during Hell Week, it was after Hell Week, and that's really important for people to know because he finished it in the morning of that Friday, February 4th. And then called me, and it was hours upon hours later, 5, 6, 7 hours. I don't know the exact amount of hours, but it was many hours later that he died in the barracks. And the reason why he died is because the medical team that they're supposed to have to be their safety net for the men, they're supposed to be looking at them and seeing if they're compromised in any way or need medical attention. They weren't providing it to the men, and they were making them ring the bell first before getting medically attended to, which is wrong. They're not supposed to do that, and that's what they were doing. And they're also underreporting their medical injuries, deaths, or what have you, because they don't want the world to know. So he gets through the first 3 weeks of the BUDS training. It started with 209 men. The fourth week was Hell Week. There was 54 men left to go through Hell Week. And I don't know all the training exercises in Hell Week, but I do know they swim in freezing cold water and potentially high bacteria in the water that they're not checking potentially. Many of the beaches are closed to the public, yet they're training in it. It's like fecal matter and bacteria from Taiwan. So during that week, whatever the training was, they went excessive training, I believe, with surf tortures are called. And the enlisted are treated or get additional surf tortures more so than the officers. So during that Hell Week, by the Wednesday, my son got SIPE. It's swimming-induced pulmonary edema, where he was even put on oxygen by the medical team. They knew he was compromised with that SIPE, yet they wanted him to finish, I guess, the SEALs, the whoever. And so 21 men were left, I believe, Wednesday afternoon, and then they finished on Friday morning. So he continually got worse because he continually was put through the training, whether it's not sleeping and surf tortures. And he rowed a boat, it's miles and miles around the island Thursday night into Friday morning. And I know that he was basically unable to walk almost at that point, being carried, his arm over another man, walking him to the finish line. So at the finish line, there's eyewitnesses saying that he was spitting up the blood, which is from that SIPE, which turned into basically pneumonia. But they put them in, they get a brown shirt and they put them on the floor in the barracks. They put them to a room, and being that there was 21, my son was in a room by himself. The medical team was let go, which is ridiculous because they hadn't slept in 5 days. They're very beat up between chafing from the sand, and they have bacteria in it. They're getting cellulitis. They're dehydrated. They're in really bad shape. Many of them have pneumonia. or that sype, which turns into pneumonia. And supposedly he was such bad shape that all the men said, check Kyle first. The medical team did not check him at all. It would be impossible. They should have put him immediately. All of them should really be immediately put into a hospital and monitored for 24 hours at minimum, at bare minimum. So they're getting all this funding, yet the medical is completely trash and not existent, in my opinion. Or if it is, it's barbaric. And they put him on the floor in the barracks. The mattress was on the floor. I saw the barracks. I saw where the mattress was. I stood in the spot. And they only have non-medical personnel, young men, like 2 19-year-olds and 1 21-year-old were checking the room. They were assigned to check, different men are assigned to check the rooms where the men are sleeping in the barracks. 3 men arrived in my son's room, and he was sitting up, apparently spitting blood and in severe pain, his lungs. And they called the medical team, and the person on the phone, because they're told not to go to Navy. They're not allowed to go to outside Buds Medical for whatever reason. They don't want the world to know the condition of the men. So they're told it's like they're told they're not allowed.
Interesting.
So when they call, yeah, it's interesting, right? So they called the Buds Medical, who were not on base. The man, whoever answered the phone, they gave the phone to my son, Kyle, I'm told, and said, if you go to medical outside of Bud, you could risk getting dropped, and the men in the room who called will be in trouble. My son would never get anybody in trouble, nor would he ever risk getting dropped.
Sure.
So he said, okay, he figured he'd sleep through the night and he'd be okay. So apparently they laid him down on the mattress, died in a 19-year-old boy's arms turned blue. Horrific. That's horrific death. It's a slow, horrific death. He must have been in pain and struggling for hours. What happened is, in another room, a young man, I don't know his age, was not breathing well. The boy checking on him called his father, that man, his father's a doctor, and saw his lips blue. So that father of that boy said, get to the hospital, you're going to die. They called 911 from that room, which they didn't care if they were going to get in trouble. So then outside paramedics came to the base, initially for that kid, but my son had died around the same time. So they diverted and went to my son's room where there was blood. The paramedics tried to revive him for a half hour. I specifically spoke to the paramedics. He said there was blood everywhere, and he tried to revive him for a half hour. Why my son went to a community hospital, I have no idea, as opposed to Navy. They lied on the news. They said 1 man went to the hospital, 3 went. 1 was intubated, 2 were on oxygen, all for pneumonia, and probably many of the other ones had pneumonia, but they're not saying because they won't tell the public.
Have you gotten anything in any kind of medical report that it was in fact pneumonia?
I have. I did my own autopsy as well. I knew it was pneumonia. Mine came back a lot quicker than theirs, which is insane to me. They knew all along. They knew day one. They had to have. There's no way you could see that he didn't die from pneumonia. But they were lying and said to get the report, and theirs took 4 months. Mine took, like a month and a half or whatever. And it was severe pneumonia, untreated for hours. And he was spitting up blood on oxygen, pushed in a wheelchair. Yeah.
Did you get...
They knew he was sick.
Yeah, did you get anything from the Navy or NCIS or whoever as to why it took all those months to be able to get that kind of autopsy or the kind of report or information?
They're trying to figure out probably how they're going to cover their butts. What they were going to say to the public. I don't know what they're still going to say because NCIS their investigation is under review for completion. There's a commander investigation that apparently the admiral's reading. It must be a very slow reader because it's been 2 weeks since I know it was given to him. He apparently knows. Apparently, I think there needs to be a military trial. I'm demanding one. I am demanding independent oversight and demanding a medical team that's competent, and I like to know what their training is. No one gives me answers for that. Someone should be in jail. I mean, you could torture a dog and watch him die and you'd be in jail in 2 seconds. My son dies 5 months ago and no one's in jail. The commander's retired end of May. I think what they do is the Navy SEALs, they never ever punish anybody across the whole entire military. No one should join until they fix this thing called a Ferris Doctrine that was written in 1950. You can't sue the military. Well, this is torture and death. Like, you can't have prisoners of war torture, but you could doing it to our own men training. And this is after training. They say no man left behind. There's my son left behind on the barracks floor to die.
Have you had any conversations with the courts or any U.S. attorneys about pursuing this in military court?
I haven't yet. I mean, I have a lawyer, but I haven't pursued anything yet. I don't know that you can, but you should be able to. But I don't know that you can because of that doctrine that's in place. And they sent him to a community hospital. They may be a reason they did that to get out of being accountable too. I don't know. It's going to have to all come out, and I hope it does.
Sure.
I mean, somebody should be in trouble and in jail or never be able to go work in the Navy or have a medical license. Somebody. Right now, nobody is. And none of the instructors are in trouble either for what they did to my son. That's torture. There's training and there's torture. It's a little different here.
Right.
I believe he's tortured. Tortured and left to die hours later. Now,
the attorney that you have, obviously with everything that you've told us, what is the attorney saying at this point or suggesting a path to...
We're just waiting to see what the NCIS investigation report states. We have no evidence right now or facts of what supposed facts. They're going to hide a lot of stuff or redact names and what have you from that report. I haven't seen it yet, so we have to see what the report says. I do know that the admiral has the commander report. Supposedly that's from an outside entity. I demanded and asked for the inspector general to do an independent, because right now the Navy inspects themselves or investigates themselves. So that's like having the mob family investigate themselves. Are they going to put anybody in jail? No. Would you put your own brother in jail? No. So that's ridiculous to me. And I demanded and I asked for that. The attorney general denied it and said, wait for NCIS's first. Why that can't be simultaneous, I get no answer. Why they never had independent oversight, I don't know what their protocols are. They probably went out of I heard there was a command survey and the instructors asked to have autonomy, meaning they could do whatever they wanted, and the commander let them do that, meaning they went outside of the protocols that were in place and did extra surf tortures. And the water supposedly was, that week of that Hell Week was really, really cold. Like it was one of the coldest weeks ever. And so that contributed to his death, and you're in the freezing cold water making them do surf tortures and swimming 2 miles, whatever it is. Mm-hmm.
What were some of the first things that you heard from the Navy after Kyle's passing as to what happened and what they believe happened or what they know happened in terms of trying to figure things out right from the get-go?
Well, they're very vague. They lie. They're trying to say, they lie. When I went out there, the commander, I mean, he was trying to be, I guess, nice, but I was, very upset with him and yelling at him and called him, he's a murderer, which I believe that is. How do you let the medical team go home? You're the commander and someone died on your watch and many men got injured and hurt. I guess that's their norm, getting injured and hurt like that, but whatever. And he said to me, well, I heard that he was asked to go to medical twice. I'm like, really? You're teaching them pain is not what you think it is. Grind it out, like deal with it, continue on. And then the next breath you're telling me that you asked him, where's your medical team? They should be telling him. So that's incompetent, and you're a commander and you're in charge of our military. So if someone gets shot in the field, I said to him, do you let them bleed to death and say, do you want, they don't know, you don't know your own pulse ox. You don't know you have pneumonia. Nobody knows. You can't tell that without medical intervention. I mean, it was the most, I was just shocked that he was a commander stating that. I go, I just felt he sounded foolish, and you're in charge and it's disgusting. And now he's retired as a commander, which that should not be. He should have been immediately pulled for dereliction of duty and loss of confidence. None of those men have confidence that they're going to get medically taken care of. None of them.
With your years as a nurse, Regina, what were some things that you were able to deduct right away and some things you were able to figure out over the course of time? I know you said you did your own autopsy.
Yes. That Friday when my son called me, right after he secured the Hell Week, it was 11 o'clock California time, 2 o'clock my time. I heard him on the phone struggling to breathe. I heard it as a mother, and I was yelling at my son to FaceTime me. Are you in pain? You have broken bones? I thought he was in a hospital. Just hearing that condition, I thought that's what was going on. And he just said to me, don't worry, Mom, I love you, and I'm good. And he hung up the phone, and I texted him, have your friend call me. You don't sound good. I want to know your medical diagnosis. And he never responded back. I'm thinking he's in a hospital. Let them do their jobs. I'm thinking they're taking care of him. I didn't want to be that helicopter mom, keep calling, because I just thought they say in all the books that the medical teams they're lying. There's no integrity and valor. And what I do know now is 20 men crossed with my son. Not one of them has the integrity and valor to speak up and speak the truth, because they're all ordered not to say anything, to protect the command. And one did, and guess what? He's in trouble and he's dropped from the SEALs. So that's, yeah. And there's steroids and HGH going on, because my son told me that in November, before that February, that everybody was doing it, he said. Mm-hmm.
Regina, I want to touch more on that and obviously get more into this, but Dave and I have to step out for a break. Can you hang with us a little longer?
Sure.
More Short Time with Vin and Dave and Regina Mullen right after this.
Hey, this is UFC Championship fighter and Toms River High School East alumni Frankie Edgar, and you're listening to Short Time with Vin and Dave on 94.3 The Point and 105.7 The Hawk. Dave and Vin, these guys are the buzz.
Whether you're in the early stages of investing, getting ready to retire, or planning your estate, you need a financial planner who will guide you on a clear path with honesty and transparency. Shoreline Wealth Management understands that you're more than your money, and they strive to help you realize your best life as they align your finances with your goals. Best of all, Shoreline's straightforward approach will include you in the process. Shoreline Wealth Management is your financial anchor, committed to helping you weather life's storms. Visit shorelinewealth.com for more information today. Shorelinewealth.com. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC.
Welcome back to Short Time with Vin and Dave. Vin Avenue, Dave Crossan with you, and with us here this morning is Regina Mullen, mother of Kyle Mullen, who passed away after Hell Week earlier this year out near San Diego with the Navy. We've been talking about what Regina, what you know, what you've found out, what you've been able to deduct, both as a mother and as a nurse as well, and obviously with possibly pursuing some action as well down the line. I want to touch on one of the things you mentioned toward the end of the last segment. What were some of the conversations you had with Kyle with what he was going through, with some of the symptoms, his loss of breath throughout the course of that week and on that day?
Right. Well, what happened is, before this, he was in group 352 when he died. Prior to group 352, he was in group 350. The first day of that, he wasn't given water, and he got severely dehydrated, and he passed out. And he was waiting for an ambulance when he called me for that by himself. And then they had him not recover in the hospital. They had him, even that time, recover in the barracks, drinking gallons of water and not allowed to get up from the bed. Not medical team were taking care of him, the seamen, the men, the enlisted men. So during that, then he got medically rolled back. During his medical rollback time, he learns and finds out that everybody's doing steroids and HGH, he said. He said it's really expensive. The instructors, I think, are doing it, and definitely the officers were, to get through it. So he thought he was going to have to do it, and I was not happy with that at all. And he said, it's a lot of money. And I said, I won't fund something like that. You never did it before in your life. You don't need to do it. If other people can get through without it, so can you. So he was contemplating it. It was really conflicting that everybody was doing it. So that's why I definitely did my own autopsy, because they were going to try to blame it on that cause of death. And I got word of that. So I did my own, and it came out clean that he did not do anything. So I was waiting to see if they were going to lie on their medical report, because they're known to lie. Like the one kid, Lovelace, was murdered. Basically, it was deemed a homicide. And that instructor who murdered that guy, he is still in the instruction. He's still an instructor there. That's what I'm saying. Nobody gets in trouble. And he murdered, that instructor murdered somebody, outright homicide, drowned him, and he's still an instructor. So the instructors, I believe, are still in the pipeline there. That's what it's called. But there's steroids and HGH is being investigated. I don't know where they're getting it, how they're getting it. It's off base, I'm told. I don't know. It's like $200 or whatever they do. I don't know anything about that. But it's being investigated.
Did Kyle discuss any concerns that he had with that kind of action going on with the HGH?
Well, I mean, that gives someone a lot more edge over you for recovery.
Sure.
Other kids that are less of an athlete than he was now are seemingly better only because of steroids and HGH, or they're getting to recover quicker, and that's not really putting you on the same playing field.
Did Kyle ever discuss any issues that he was having with any of the training drills or exercises, or with anybody, any of the instructors there?
No, he actually welcomes all the training. I don't know. He likes training. He did it his whole life. He said he fell. There's this thing called an O course, and there's a rope that you have to, I don't know what you call it, down. It's ridiculously high, like 2 stories high. He told me he fell from that. And he said he's huge. He was 6'4", 255, and he fell, and it was a big noise. They all came running over, and then he got up and ran and finished it, not in the right amount of time, but you get 3 chances to complete it, I think it is, and you have to pass it twice. So he passed it the first time, failed it the second because he fell. He had one more shot to pass it within the time, do the O course, and he secured that time the Thursday before Hell Week. That's what enabled him to go through Hell Week.
Obviously, and like you've mentioned as well, Kyle was in incredible shape and a phenomenal athlete going into this. Did he ever express any desire, like, I'm not feeling well, or I don't know that I could do this?
Well, the second week of the Buds on Group 352, that second week, that Friday, it was at the end of the day that, at nighttime, he called me and he said he's swollen. So I thought it was just his legs. I said, lay down, put your feet up. And then he goes, my face is all swollen. I go, FaceTime me. And I saw him. It was all completely swollen. His eyes, his face, everything. I'm like, holy cow, don't lay down. Sit up. You can't lay down. You got to stay sitting up. I told him to go to the hospital. He wouldn't. He goes, I can't. You don't understand. I can't go. He goes, I was legitimately drowning. Blood was filling in my lungs. I'm splitting up blood. That was a Friday, though. And he finished. He goes, luckily, it was the end of the day, and he completed that Friday. So he recovered because it was a 3-day. Monday was a holiday, from President holiday in January. I don't remember the holiday. But so if you have SIPE and you're not continually put in the water, it kind of goes away by itself. SIPE is where your body has its own mechanisms to warm your core. So the blood rushes to the core to warm your heart, your core vitals, your organs, and the other fluid, goes into the interstitial. That's why you get all edema everywhere of your body. So the fluids shift. But when you're out of the water, that freezing cold water, they slowly go back to where they're supposed to be. So his didn't recover during Hell Week because he had those continuous exercises in the freezer.
Typically, I mean, I've heard different things over the years with what's involved in some of the training and boot camp and so on and so forth. But with what Kyle was going through, or what anybody goes through with the kind of obstacle courses or the different physical challenges and everything, with your insight perspective as a nurse, how long would it typically takes somebody to recover? I know obviously Kyle was in incredible shape, but whether it's somebody in his kind of shape or just the average person, does this take a while?
I mean, it says 48 hours.
Okay.
So he would have that 40 hours, but like it turned into pneumonia because you're immune compromised, you're not sleeping, you're continuously. And I don't even know why the training's needed to do that to them, to torture them. It just makes no sense to me. But I'm not them. I don't know. There's talk about why is the SEAL training even needed? Because they can get absorbed in the other special warfare out there. They don't have as many injuries and deaths. Why does the SEALs? What are they doing? Nobody knows what they're doing because they don't want the independent oversight. They don't want the big Navy, they call it, to know what they're doing. And they think they're better than everybody. And clearly they're not. And they're torturing men. Young men have lifelong injuries from the bacteria in the water. There's this thing called VEGE. It's like gastritis where they're throwing up and have severe diarrhea where they get severely dehydrated. They're not even giving them antibiotics for that, where they're going off base, not telling, the Buds medical that they're doing it to help themselves because they don't want to die. Who wants to die? You want to get through the training, but you don't want to die. And they're not taking care of the men. They're not. One guy slammed his head and had a traumatic brain injury, and the commander wouldn't let him go to medical and made him stand in the office full uniform, but trying to make him to ring the bell before they give him medical. That boy still, I don't know if he even had an MRI. He went to the Navy to get the Balboa Hospital. They said you need it immediately, but they couldn't do it. Only Buds could do it. How about that? It's ridiculous. I mean, there's many stories coming in to me by all mothers, and they're like, please, you got to help these men. And I'm trying. I mean, my son, you can't bring back, and that kills me every day. But I feel like I have a responsibility now to make sure it doesn't happen again, and to help the men that I met there. They're bright. They're trying to be, heroes. I got to make sure the medical's there. The safety net is not there. It's not. The funding is not proper. I also heard this is what the instructors were doing right before Hell Week. They're making all the men give them money, saying for like food. They're probably pocketing that, making money off the guys. They need to be investigating that too. They're going to say I'm lying, and I'm not lying.
We've certainly touched on a lot of that. It was going to be part of my follow-up as well, Regina, whether it's looking more into what happened with Kyle and what answers aren't there. What are some things you're looking for on that front and learning more about what happened to Kyle, with Kyle, and and certainly after?
I definitely think they need strict protocols in place. I think they need and must have independent oversight. I want a military trial to really get to the bottom of it, because they're lying and covering things up. They weren't doing proper testing for HGH and steroids. They were doing 2 men at a time. That's not the protocols for that. Because they were crossing it, making someone else look like they did steroids when they didn't, taking the fall for the other guy. So they're doing a lot of things that are wrong, a lot. And, maybe it's hearsay right now, but that's why I'm asking for independent investigation and oversight, because it's going on, and let's not look the other way. Let's fix it. And people need to be held accountable and put in jail. I want a military trial.
And along those lines, you're also looking to see what else is going on, obviously not just with Kyle, but with all the other reports or allegations coming out of training. Yep.
There's a lot. I mean, is the bacteria level, is something called NAFSCO. It's like an OSHA for, the civilian world. They have their own. They're not following that. They're not following protocols for training. The medical is not trained properly. They're not treating the men. Possible steroids, HGH abuse going on. I mean, there's a lot of things. A lot.
Regina, we've talked certainly about a lot about what happened, and certainly with the possible plans of action for learning more about what happened with Kyle, and obviously what else could be going on over there. But I want to switch some gears here to the person, obviously, that Kyle was. I mean, as well. What were some of his career goals with the Navy in an aspiring military career? What was it he ultimately wanted to do?
He only told me right after he signed up. I never knew he wanted to do this, but his logic was he couldn't find himself sitting in an office, and he liked teamwork, and he wanted to do something that others couldn't, and he wanted to help. He always liked to help people. Like I said, how are you going to shoot somebody if you had to? And he's like, well, if someone was going to hurt me, could you shoot them? I said, I don't know. He goes, Mom, if they're going to hurt me. I go, well, then maybe. He goes, well, think of it that way. If I had to do something to somebody, I saved thousands, and then I did my job. And he wanted to save people. And I do think his death is bringing awareness to what's going on out there, and maybe his death will save other people, or put better medical in place and protocols in place and oversight in place, and so these instructors or medical team don't hurt anybody else going forward. So that's the only way I can get through my life, is hopefully I can accomplish that for him. I
want to touch as we close up as well, just talking about who Kyle is. Dave, a star defensive lineman, tight end for Manalapan High School, led the Braves to their first NJSIAA state sectional title in 2014. He was named Class A North Defensive Player of the Year. And he, in his senior year, 136 tackles, 18 for a loss, 11 sacks, 4 fumble recoveries, and caught 6 touchdown passes that senior year. I just want to read a couple quotes that we have from a couple of his former coaches, including the legend Ed Guerreri. He was a better person off the field than he was on the field. If you look at what you would want as a Navy SEAL, he fit those criteria. If anybody was going to be a SEAL, it was going to be him. They're considered the best of the best: integrity, physically gifted, and intellectual. And he was all that. He was one of the best football players, students, teammates, son, brother. He checked every box. And then Dom Lepore, who was an assistant for Manalapan at the time, said he was such a great kid. Everybody that encountered him, he had such a positive effect on everybody. Just a great kid, the complete package. He had all the intangibles. One of the best kids we've ever had here. Such glowing thoughts from Ed Guerreri and Dom Lepore, among many others, Regina, who just spoke about the kind of person he was. Obviously physically talented and physically gifted, but a phenomenal athlete, tremendous leader, a good teammate, and just an outstanding overall person. What does it mean to hear these kinds of comments about what people thought of Kyle and just their evaluation of who he was as a person?
I mean, I knew it always, but I always wanted him to be humbled, which I believe he was. He's never like a bragger or anything. He was just a nice person, and he, some of his friends have tattoos, be better. I guess he would always tell people to be better, just to do right. And he liked competition. He liked games. He loved all his friends. He loved his family. I was his best friend. He told everybody. We were really, after they grow up, you aren't yelling at him every day. Now you brought up this good human being, him and his brother. I would just love being around them both. He was everything to me.
What were some of the things that Kyle did that made you laugh, or made people laugh, or that made people smile?
Well, he wore like silly outfits sometimes, the Hawaiian stuff, and he would dance all the time. He's always singing. And apparently he likes Taylor Swift, which was odd to me. The Navy in California, they said that he got everybody liking it because he know every word to every song. But he likes all genre of music. He loves everything. I mean, because at Yale he had to like Beethoven and all that kind of stuff. He took classes with that.
Oh wow.
Yeah, Indonesian class he took there too, and he loved everything. Everywhere he went, people gravitated towards him, and it was just a happy-go-lucky person. He was a hard-working person. I mean, he didn't just think he was better than anybody ever, and he was friends with all races, creeds, tall, short, this, that, everybody. He even volunteered when I used to work at a medical daycare. And he spoke at a school when I did home care. The woman was a principal, and he spoke to the young kids to listen to the parents and do good in school. He would help people learn football and just volunteer for that. Just kept himself busy and, striving to be a good person. And he didn't know what he wanted to do, so he wanted to do something, like I said, it's like a little boy wanting to be Superman. He wanted to do something that it was hard for others that he wanted to accomplish. He just had that strive to be all that he could be.
That's awesome. Hey, it's Superman. Kyle Mullen is still very much a part of, I think, the fabric of the Jersey Shore, and certainly in Manalapan, obviously family, friends, and I think his fighting spirit, his leadership is, being a good teammate and a great person, I think will just always be something that lives on in a lot of people's minds and in their hearts as well. I appreciate you providing a look into Kyle as the person, and providing a lot of information and everything you've learned, obviously, about what happened tragically several months ago, but with what you're doing now. Really appreciate you coming on this morning, Regina.
Thank you.
Thank you, Regina, so much for sharing all that, and we hope you get peace with this process and we find out more because so much that happened that there definitely needs to be some answers.
Yeah.
Yeah, please keep us posted, Regina, on everything that's going on. We'll be happy to have you back on here and help try and find out some answers for you as well.
Thank you so much.
That is Regina Mullen. More Short Time with Vin and Dave right after this.
Hi, this is high performance executive coach Dana Cavalier and former director of strength and conditioning for the New York Yankees. And you're listening to Shore Time with Vin and Dave on 94.3 The Point and 105.7 The Hawk. It's always great to hang with champions, and these two guys are champions.
Let's face it, investment concepts and financial planning can be very intimidating and confusing. Shoreline Wealth Management addresses that feeling head on. Their goal is to educate you while offering financial advice without buzzwords and jargon. Shoreline includes you in the process and makes you comfortable every step of the way on your path to financial freedom. Shoreline Wealth Management is your financial anchor. Visit shorelinewealth.com for more information today. Shoreline Wealth Management, with offices in Manchester and Manahawkin. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA FINRA SIPC.
Welcome back to Short Time with Vin and Dave. Vin Avenue, Dave Crossan with you. As we wrap up another show, we had Neptune City Mayor Andrew Wardell on with us in the first hour. Dave talking about all the great restaurants, first off, in Neptune City that many people may not have known. Obviously, we all know about Pete and Elda's Carmen's Pizzeria, but a lot of great things to do. They have their Movie in the Park series that's already underway. So
lots of fun.
Lots going on in Neptune City.
Oh, yeah. Looking forward to going to Pete and Elda's. I got to do it now. Everybody has gone except me. I'm in. I will come back to you and report, give you a report of what I thought.
Free piece of advice, though.
Yes.
So let's say you're going
now,
there.
What is it? You have to eat 2 pizzas and you get a T-shirt?
A double extra large pie and you get a T-shirt. Just one double extra large pie.
I got to see what that looks like. And it's thin crust, so you should be able to get through it.
And
okay.
It's really good pizza, too. And what I would do, so if you're going there for like a dinner time thing, I would even skip lunch.
Okay.
Just, have a good breakfast to get your day going.
Done. Okay.
Because it's going to fill you up fast. Okay. And you're going to get through maybe, depending on your appetite, maybe 2, 3, 4 slices. You're like, oh boy, it's starting to hit. And then you start to slow down. That's when that extra room in your stomach's going to hit. And so it's just cheese.
We're not adding extra toppings where
you could if you want to. People have. I've tried like sausage on there and stuff like that. Some people like to add, all the toppings you would on a typical pizza.
But if it's a competition and I want that T-shirt, let's keep it as light as possible. I'm not saying I'm going to do it.
Right.
But I love a challenge.
To each their own, whatever works.
Okay. I'll do a little field work. I'll let you know what I think about this. Okay.
It's a fun place. Obviously, great things going on in Neptune City. And then we just had a very deep, heavy conversation with Regina Mullen. And we obviously closed it up talking about the life of Kyle Mullen and the great person and athlete that he was and ways we can keep his Superman spirit alive.
Correct.
But obviously, it's a mom, a nurse looking for answers. She was able to figure things out pretty quickly. And she's looking for answers from the Navy, from NCIS, from anybody with regards to Kyle and things that she's heard that are going on allegedly with the Navy and other military practices. So she's looking for some answers, and she's looking for some support as well. And she's just an absolutely amazing woman with such strength.
Well, number one, yes, she deserves answers. A lot took place, and considering everything that transpired, a lot of questions and a lot of different things that she mentioned with the attorney that she has, and they're going to pursue this. And the questions, where does that go, and what does she find out? But I'm glad she came on today. It's also putting out the awareness that this took place. The story needs to be out there. And, I have to say that was Kyle as an individual, as a person, as Superman, whatever you want to say, just an amazing person that did not deserve this outcome. And it's we want to remember him, and we want his mom, Regina, to get the answers that she deserves.
Just 24 years old.
Yeah.
Just remember Kyle Mullen, and whatever you do, obviously a phenomenal person, a phenomenal athlete. We'll have more on Kyle and what we heard from Regina today. We'll post up some of the information on our website and our app tomorrow, which, Dave, on another note, is where people can check things out later on this week. As we'll reveal who the 2 guests are for next Sunday's show. We got another one. Another one in the cooker. The
great
the fryer,
show.
What are those things called? The crock pot.
Yeah, there you go.
If you will.
Sure.
Where you kind of just let it simmer for a few hours. So we got some good stuff coming up. We'll have it for you this week. Dave, have a great Sunday, a great week ahead.
You too, my friend. Thank you.
A great week and a great Sunday ahead to you all. More Short Time with Vin and Dave a week from now on 94.3 The Point, 105.7 The Hawk. Until then, we're out.
Hi, this is Christy Pierce-Rampone, former U.S. women's soccer team captain, Olympic gold medalist, World Cup champion, and Point Borough High School alum. And you're listening to Short Time with Vin and Dave on 94.3 The Point and 105.7 The Hawk. Tune in for some real conversation with Dave and Vin. You don't want to miss this.